Hello everyone, this is Deepak and welcome to this video. In this video we will learn about the configuration of SSH on a Cisco router and switch. So let's open up the Cisco packet tracer and we will configure the SSH connection on both Cisco routers and switch. Now in this scenario we will take a router and a switch and a end device. So the end device will access through the SSH. So basically what is SSH? SSH stands for the secure cell, and the default port of SSH is 22, and we use the SSH in unsecured connections for making a secure connection and stabilize a secure connection to configure and manage device. So let's grab a router here. So let's take 2911 series router and 2960 series switch, and we will also take an end device. So in my case I am using this laptop. Suppose if we wanna access our network through this laptop, so it will need. So first we will configure only the basic SSH configuration, and after that we will also look about how we can just access this connection through the outside of this network or from the different network, we can say that. So first of all, let's connect these devices by using the cable. So in my case I am using this Gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and on the switch end I am using this Gigabit Ethernet 0/1. So make sure you follow along this video. Now let's say we will have this router and switch, and in case of switch we will use the VLAN interface to have the management port, and in router we will generally use this Gigabit Ethernet or the default gateway here. So let's first check out about this port. So as we can see now, the Gigabit Ethernet 0/0 is already down, so we have to make it up. Okay, let me just quick arrange this scenario. Okay, let's open this router interface. Okay, so just go to the user privilege mode and global configuration mode. Select the interface Gigabit Ethernet, and put down here like no shutdown. Now this port is up, and let's try to access this router and switch through the SSH. So by using SSH we can access a device interface, maybe like in this case we are using the IOSCLI command interface directly in the router, but we will access through this laptop. So first the initial configuration that should be made be done here. So first we have to assign some kind of IP address, so that the IP address, through the IP address, the laptop will access that router and that switch. So let's make some note here. Okay, so let's take a note. So this is a note, so we have some shortcut key for that note also. So let's say the IP address for this router interface, that would be 10.1.1/28, and for switch we will take a VLAN, the default VLAN, and for this VLAN we will use this IP address 10.1.10/28, and this laptop will get the 10.10.1.2 IP address, and the CAD value should be 28. Make sure. So let's put this IP address here. just go to IP configuration, make sure it is static, and 10.10.1.2, and this prints about the default subnet mask of class A IP address, because we are using the class A IP address, and due to we are using the CIDR value of 28, so we have to give the subnet mask accordingly. So 255.255.255.240. Make sure this will end with 240, and we will assign the default gateway of this laptop should be 1.1. Now close this one, and we have to assign this IP address to this port. So assign the IP address by using this command, and the subnet mask for this CIDR value, and just basically exit from this mode and exit from this mode. So we wanna configure the SSH in this router first. So let's say show IP SSH. So by this command we can issue if the SSH is enabled or disabled, so we can track them. So by default the SSH is disabled, and the version is showing here, and it also says to generate some RSS here. So we will talk about these things during this video, and let's say just go to the global configuration mode again, and now in this time we have to change the host name for this router because it is needed in order to generate the RSA keys. So give this command here, first change the host name here. So let's say we assign this router host name is like router 0, and as you can see the router is renamed with the router 0 because we have just changed the host name. And now we have to assign the domain name here also. So IP domain name. So if you don't know this command, so just give the IP and the question mark, and we are taking this command here, define the default domain name. So IP domain hyphen name. So in this time for this experiment purpose we are using like cisco.com, and hit down the enter key. Now we have to generate some RSA key here. So like crypto key generate RSA, and give the question mark, and the next possibilities is showing the general keys, then general keys, then modulus. If you question mark here, so it will also hint about the modulus, and you have to give the length of the key. So like give the question mark again, and this is the length of the key from 360 to 4096. So in between we have to choose which length of key we can use. So it is not a random number, so we have to choose carefully here. So I'm using 2048, or generally you can use the 4096, it's up to you. So just hit down the enter key. So in Cisco Packet Tracer it just generated the key, but it didn't show. So if you wanna just see the key and base64 version of key, so you can just use the JNS3 or even G like other emulators, because Cisco Packet Tracer is just a simulator, so it won't show much more things here. Now let's say IP SSH version 2. So this command, what it does, it enables the SSH in this router. So we have to just give this command IP SSH version 2. So hit down this enter key and exit from this mode. Now again issue this command show SSH. Now as we can see, SSH enabled with version 2.0, and authentication timeout, because we didn't set, so it take default authentication time and authentication retries. We can manually just define on that global configuration mode, so you can just do there. So it's totally optional, so we are just skipping that part. Then again just go to the configuration, configure terminal, global configuration mode. Now we have to enable inside the line width UI 0 to 15, and inside this we have to tell this transport input SSH. So whatever the SSH connection will come inside this terminal, so it will only access and it will only allow the SSH connections. And for the login purpose we will use the login local, and just exit from this mode, and we have to create some user here so they can log in here. Then we have to issue this command username. Let's say we are using the admin, and after that we will assign the privilege level here also. Then privilege, so privilege level, it is defined like it's a range, so the different level of privilege user, so they can access accordingly to that line width Y. And we will use the highest priority, privilege level 15, and that password, make sure you give the password here on the second line, and just don't hit down this enter key here, I just accidentally did there. So give the password here, and we will assign password like Cisco. Okay, now hit down this enter key, and we have this admin and with the password of Cisco. Now let's say exit from this mode, and now let's try to use the SSH in our laptop. So just go to this laptop and go to the command prompt and give this command ssh-l and give the username here, and we have to give this IP address, the default gateway IP address in which the router has enabled the SSH. So we have to give this IP address here. So this device has the SSH connection, so we have to give this IP address. Just hit down this enter key and give the password. The password was Cisco. So now as we can see, we have successfully accessed the router by using the SSH connections, and this is router 0, and now we're gonna connect with this switch. So in this switch, in case of switch, we have to assign this IP address into that VLAN, and number of VLAN is VLAN 1, the default VLAN. So let's go into the VLAN 1. Let's just exit from this mode, and what about if I SSH here, admin again here, or the switch admin, whatever the user will create inside this switch. So I'm just giving the admin 10.10.1.10, and this won't respond because we did not configure the SSH inside this switch here. So we have to configure here. Just open the CLI tab into the switch, and let's enable configure terminal, and okay, one thing, show IP interface brief. So these are the ports available in this switch, and most of them are down by default because only the Gigabit Ethernet is connected with other devices, and VLAN 1 which is administratively down, and we have to make sure this should be up, and we have to also assign an IP address onto this VLAN. So just go to the global configuration mode and select this VLAN interface. So because VLAN 1 is showing here, so that means VLAN 1 is an interface here. So VLAN 1, and give the IP address here. So in this IP address we will assign this IP address 10.10.1.10. So 10.10.1.10, and this CAD value should be in with 240. just hit down the enter key. So remember, it's showing the green lights here, but we have to still make sure it should be up. So just exit from this mode and exit from this mode, and let's say again IP interface brief. Now we have just assigned the IP address to this VLAN, so we have to just change the state of this port. Go to again configure terminal and interface VLAN 1 and no shutdown. So we have successfully just changed the status of this port. Show IP interface brief again, and now this time we can see the VLAN 1 is accessible, but we didn't yet configure the SSH inside this switch. So let's say if we try to do this, close Wi-Fi and host. Okay, so the steps would be same, like we have just configured the router, show IP SSH. So SSH by default it's also disabled here, so we have to configure here. Just go to the global configuration mode and change the host name here, like switch A, and give the domain name here, IP domain name, that should be cisco.com. And one thing here, we have to also assign the default gateway here for the VLAN 1 interface, and we will do this by issuing this command IP default gateway, and we have to assign that default gateway IP address here, 10.10.1.1. hit down the enter key, and then after we have to generate the RSA key here. Then IP, it should be crypto key generate RSA, and after that general keys modulus or you can just directly give this command only, crypto key generate RSA. So it will ask about the key on the next step. So it says how many bits in the modulus. So generally we will give this here like 4096, but right now I'm using the 2048. So the key is exported and generated here. So right now we have to just enable the SSH here. So let's say to check again the SSH here, SSH enabled with version 1.99, so we have to just change the version here. So just go to the global configuration mode again and IP SSH version 2, exit from this mode and issue this command show IP SSH, and now in this time the version is 2.0. Great. Okay, one thing in about the switch, so switch requires the secret or password enabled to the user privilege access mode, so we have to give this here. So just go to this PC or the laptops and issue this command show SSH-L and 10.10.1.10 and give this username here. Now it asks about the password, give the password. So there is no password because we did not assign or didn't create any user here. So let's add some user here, and we also have to make the SSH access inside the V2I 0 to 15. So just go to the global configuration mode again, and first let's create some user here like switch user, and let's say we have to give the privilege here with label of 15, and we will assign the password with like Cisco. So note down the username of this switch here, like switch user or super user, you can say. Super user. Okay, so username is super user and privilege is 15 and password is Cisco. Now hit down the enter key and just go to the line v2i 0 to 15 and login local, and after that we have to enable the SSH access here, then transport input. So we have multiple kind of inputs here, like all non-telnet, and if you are using the JNS3, so you will get much more inputs here. So we will use just only the SSH here in our case. Exit from this mode and let's try to access from this PC. Okay, so this admin is not exist in this switch, so it was like super admin, I guess. Now give the password Cisco. Let's say what was okay, super user, it's super user, it's my mistake. SSHL super user, and give the IP address here 10.10.1.10 and give the password here Cisco. Now as we can see, we can just enter inside this switch global configuration mode, configure terminal. We can make configuration from this SSH connection here, like enable secret at 123. So this is our secret password. Exit from here and show run. So this will show the all running file, whatever the running file configuration, the active inside the RAM. Now just save the configuration here, copy running config to startup config. Excuse me. Now just issue this command, show SSH, and we can see an SSH connection is made. So these are the, what we can say, the details about the SSH connection, the active SSH connections, which is accessible and which is accessed by some device. So if you wanna just track which client PC or the client device is accessing the switch or the router, so you can just issue this command, so SSH. So the super user is accessing, and the session has started, what it's saying, and these are the connections, and this is the connection type, the mode in and out. So let's close this window, and let's close this window too, and if you issue that command here also, let's say show SSH. So this one is active right now. So what about if we issue this command here also, enable show SSH? So there is no connection right now. So let's say if you wanna access again here, okay, just exit from this mode and access that router. So in case of router, the user was admin and the IP address was 10.10.1.1. Hit down the enter and password was Cisco. And let's open the CLI again and issue that command again, show SSH. As we can see, we have this connection by admin, and this is the active connection which is accessed by this laptop. So let's say we will take a PC here and we will connect with this PC by using this cable. Let's connect with, now in this time I'm gonna using this fast Ethernet, and let's assign here the IP address. Let's say 10.10.1.3 and at the end 240 10.10.1.1, and close this and open this command prompt and give here ssh-l admin and 10.10.1.1. Let's try to log in here, and it asks about the password, the default password. Let's say Cisco. Now in this time, if I wanna access here, suppose like if we issue this command again here, show ssh, and we can see the 2 connections, and it's showing total the 4 because the mode in and out. So totally we have the 4 connections of SSH to this router, and this PC is accessing to this router through the SSH. Now let's say we have to exit from here and ssh-l, and let's say 10.10.1.10. excuse me, the username that should be super user, and password was Cisco. So in case of switch, we have just accessed the switch, show SSH. So this one is active by using the super user. So now let's say this is the it could be a general local area network. So what about if we just spread about our network and wanna access these devices for the management purposes through the outside of the network or the remote location? So what we can do here, we can just take another router here, like 2911 series router, and don't forget to just save this configuration, excuse me, copy running config to the startup config. Okay, cool. Copy running config to startup config. Now exit this device again, and we have to, let's power up this router switch, and just drag and drop the HWIC to T, and this device also needs this port. So this is generally a serial port which has the 2 serial connections, and let's say take a switch here and a device like laptop. Okay, so in this time, suppose it was like 10.10.1.1 and this was like 10.10.1.3/28. okay, and let's cable these devices. So take this serial DC cable here and select this serial 0/0/0, and it should be 0/1. So this is not necessary to just connect to other end with serial 0/0/1. You can choose serial 0/0/0, so there's no problem, just it's up to your configuration. And take this cable, and now this time connect with Gigabit Ethernet, and fast Ethernet will connect with this laptop. Okay, so let's assign some IP address on the serial ports. Let's say it will get 10.0.0.1/30, and this will get 10.0.0.40 2/30. So there will be only the two IP addresses. The host IP addresses is allowed to this subnet, and the IP will be also preserved and will not go to the waste. So let's open this router again, and we have to enable this serial interface. Enable configure terminal. Now interface serial 0/0/0 and give the IP address 10.10.0.0.1 and the subnet mask for /30 is at the end. Give the 252 and assign the clock rate. We have already discussed about the clock rate in previous session, so if you don't know about the clock rate, so you can just go through the previous tutorials. Let's say 72000 and give the no shutdown command here to make this port state 2 up and exit from this mode again. Let's go to the another router. Enable configure terminal and interface serial 0/0/1 and give the IP address 10.10.0.2/30. that should be 252 and generally give the no shutdown command here. Now exit from this mode and save the configuration, copy running config, and another shortcut you already know about, which is write. So by using the write command, so the copy running config and the startup config, it will issue. So just don't write right now. By using this command you can save the configuration file, but it is not recommended to use this write command. Copy running config to startup config. Okay, now in this time we have to enable the Gigabit Ethernet here also. Let's configure terminal again and interface Gigabit Ethernet 0/0 and give the IP address here. And this time suppose the, let's say an easy IP address here, let's 10.1 class C IP address and no shutdown. Let's take a note to this network also, 192.168.10.1/24, the default class C IP address, subnet mask, and let's say it should be 10.2/24. Now let's assign the IP address of this. Just minimize this one and give the IP address 192.168 and 10.2, 192.168 and 10.1. Now close this window and close this window too, and we have to configure some kind of routing here. So we can either go with the static routing or just assign some kind of like dynamic or distant vector routing protocol here. So it's only up to you what kind of routing you're gonna use here. So it's totally depend upon the network. So for example, we're gonna use this as a like, okay, let's close this window and open this router again. Okay, and exit from this mode, and now let's say router RIP and version 2. We're gonna configure the RIP just for the testing purpose and give this command no auto summary. As you can see, the whole network is the discontiguous network, and there is no default subnet mask, instead just only the last one which we have just created right now. So we must give this command the auto assembly just to stop the auto summarization. Now hit down the enter key again. Now we have to include those network which we gonna use here. So give this command network 192.168 and 10.0, the network ID for this network, which is gonna include to this routing table. Now give another network ID here, network 10.0.0.0. We have to just include only this network and exit from this mode. And at the end, copy running config to startup config. Now let's close this window and let's open either a PC or a router. Suppose if you wanna do this from this laptop, just exit from here and ssh-l admin and give the router IP address here, Cisco. Okay, so we're gonna configure the RIP through the SSH of this router. So just go to the global configuration mode and give the router RIP version 2 and no auto summary for stopping the auto summarization, and give the network here like 10.10.1.0. For this network we have to mention about the 10.10.0.1.0 because it is /28. On the other hand, we have to also include the 10.0.0.0. Now exit from this mode and exit from this mode and issue this command copy running config to startup config. Show IP route. So this is the IP route, and as you can see, it includes the network which we have used, and like this one. Okay, so RIP is working fine here, and let's say just exit from this mode and ping to other network here, ping 192.168 and 10.2. So first packet always dropped just because of ARP, and if we just wanna ping again here, so we will get the 100% echo messages from the destination. Now let's say this is the internal network and this one is the external network. Let's draw something here like this rectangle, and there's no fill, and okay, let's fill the color with like this one. Let's make it more light. Okay, and we don't need to this outline here. And we will also use this color scheme. So this is just for the illustration purpose. Now close this window and let's select. So these are the two different network we can see. So this one is the different, and this one also the different network, and the interface of the serial interface is totally different. So we just not gonna too much details about those interfaces. So let's take some note here, like this is like internal network, and let's take another note here. like it's a external network. So internal network can access this router through the SSH. Let's say admin 10.10.1.1, password was Cisco, and we can access this router through this PC, so which is inside the internal access. And suppose this router are far from, like suppose like a geographical distance. Okay, so let's access that router using this remote location, and just go to the command prompt and first ping the router, whether it is ping or not, 10.10.1.1. so we can successfully get the echo messages from this router. So that means the connection should be stabilized there. Then 10.10.1.1, and it asks about the password. So remember, we are just accessing that router by using this laptop, and this laptop belongs inside to the external network, not inside the internal network. So through the remote location we can also access the SSH by using only that username and password which we have assigned to that router, and whatever we have configured inside the SSH connection to that router. And we can also see everything like show running config. So these are the configuration file. Now as you can see, inside the configuration file the password is like in the plain text. User is admin and privilege 15. We can see password clearly, so just to encrypt this password we can ssh another command like configure terminal. Let's go to the global configuration mode and give this command service password encryption. By issuing this command, whatever the password you have already assigned or you wanna assign on future preferences, so it will always encrypt in your running config. Just issue this command again, and let's say the password is encrypted right now. But in case of switch, we did not yet just configured about the service and password encryption, so you can just do it by yourself. So remember, the configuration of RIP version 2 is totally optional. Here you can use any kind of protocol whatever you're compatible with. So this was all about for this SSH configuration, and we also see about how we can access the device through the management port and through the internal network as well as the external network. Hope you understand about the SSH access and the different approach to the SSH access through the internal network or the external network or the remote location. If you have still any kind of doubts, so you can just write down in the below comment box. And this was all about for this video, and thanks for watching this video guys, and guys, see you in the next video.